On Tuesday, March 16th, Wilfred Frost, the co-anchor of CNBC's Closing Bell, joined Alex Karp, the co-founder and CEO of Palantir, for a near hour-long discussion. The discourse was focused around the following prompt: technology as sword and shield. How can we uphold civil liberties and privacy rights in a world of big data? In this video, I'll be sharing some of what I found to be the key points from the event. After watching it twice in its entirety and taking a few pages of notes. Everything you need to know from the interview pertaining to PLTR coming up. Also, yesterday I posted a supercut of the event featuring highlights which you can watch after hearing my analysis here, because there is certainly a lot to parse through and make sure we understand as those interested in this company. I'll segment my analysis into sections: Alex Karp, Palantir's Prowess, PLTR's unique offering, Palantir's philosophies, and enterprise focus, and PLTR stock. Getting started with Alex Karp. I do want to briefly talk about CEO Alex Karp just off the bat here. This interview I feel was the best look we've had into him speaking freely for a long amount of time. One of the hosts described him as a, quote, different person, a patriot, and a man willing to stand up for what is right. A few separate times spread throughout the discussion, commenting on his own appearance, he called himself, quote, a mad-looking CEO. And when people ask where to get the best software for their business, they are told by others to surely go to the, quote, crazy-looking CEO with the 12-year-olds. So I found this banter quite funny, but more seriously, he said that he does feel accepted by providing value even while living his own life, not being a conformist. Here's him talking about his lawyers and about the idea of evading questions on two separate occasions.
When my lawyers call me 80 times before this call to tell me that I can't talk about the relationship between the quality of the air and our share price. I can't talk about how much I love my parents. I dare not mention that I wrote a PhD. I must not laugh at certain jokes, and I must avoid anything that would sound optimistic about our business, let alone, God help me, if I say any of my personal views. That I don't like. Of course, I'm resisting it, and as you may notice, so far they haven't, shackled me to their massive prison of inability to speak on anything that would matter for Palantir. I actually don't think it's an individual thing, and I'm not just trying to evade your answer, because that's my job. Apparently, my lawyers tell me my job is to evade the answers of journalists and never answer a question. And by the way, they want to get me into these workshops, so I learned to evade answers better and never say anything. However, so far I've evaded them. But
the bottom line, I think, is that he is very self-aware and open. That is quite encouraging to me as an investor. Palantir's Prowess. So I'm just going to run through all my notes to get you the full breakdown. Palantir's software has been deployed under 4 US presidential administrations, and Palantir remains very engaged with each administration. And their engagement is not a political game, it's just their job. Palantir provides world-class software to the most important companies. And in a world where software is a disaster, as Karp said, Palantir supplies software that is exceedingly useful and crucial on the clandestine military and enterprise sides of work. And Karp also said, what you're already seeing in modern day is that companies that are good at software are exceedingly valuable. And he says to expect a wider distribution of tech companies across the country away towards the Midwest and away from Silicon Valley monoculture. For government software, using Palantir is straight up common sense. And Palantir pushed the US government to embrace it as the best free market option. Medium-sized businesses are very good for Palantir, and they will be very happy with Palantir's platform's performance. The smaller the company, the easier it is to utilize fast data analysis. And as a side note, Karp said that companies must be adaptable and hungry in order to thrive in today's cutthroat society. Some larger corporations are making, or should I say saving, billions a year because of Palantir. And Karp said Palantir is the most important company in the world for supplying software to governments, and there is no second in line. Palantir, the single most important. PLTR's unique offering. Palantir had a crazy dream to do what it does today. And if you're not a software engineer, Karp said it's very hard to understand which offerings today are the best. But along these lines, Palantir has the very best client list in the world, despite Alex Karp as the front man. He brought that up, not me. No other company in the world can compare in this industry to what Palantir is able to pull together. They have very big companies, and many of them are choosing Palantir for its services. Here are two quotes that I liked from Karp. He said, "What is your software doing to help somebody?" And he also said, "If you're on the cutting edge and profit maximizing, you have a responsibility to protect your country." And I think those two quotes very much represent what Palantir is working on. And on the question of if tech is a sword or a shield, Karp said that strong technology is a sharp instrument that can be abused, and any tech can be abused, but the aggregate advances usually outweigh any dangers or negative consequences. And he said software is non-linear to the extreme in terms of performance, especially when Palantir gets involved. And he did say at one point that Palantir's software platform is in relation to, quote, the moon, when talking about how much farther ahead it is to some other people in the industry. And you can't spend to make up the difference in software. There also needs to be parity in delivering Palantir's software, which is where Apollo comes into play. Alright, moving on to Palantir's philosophies. Karp said to never underestimate your adversaries, and Palantir needs to focus on itself, not its competition, in order to put its best foot forward. And again, Palantir has some of the most important clients in the world, and growth comes from questioning how a business can best execute on a given objective. If you have a crisis, Palantir can solve it, and after that, you can pay Palantir. Even from the beginning, Palantir was dead set on having free pilot programs, and Alex Karp encourages you to ask others about how Palantir's software is doing for them. And the best way to evaluate any software platform is to give it a very challenging problem to put it through its paces. And in his role as CEO, Karp likes to throw out ideologies that don't work. And when asked about his single best decision as CEO, he said it was personally being involved with the hiring of the first 350 people and employees to build the culture that has powered everything good about PLTR up to this point. And he was able to instill and be a shepherd of that culture. And when asked about his worst decision, he said, "We make a lot of mistakes, but probably it was that the first commercial product was an unmitigated disaster," something they have since fixed with Foundry. And shifting over to the enterprise focus, talking about IBM and AWS, with the largest global footprints of any software companies, Karp said it's very easy to work with these great product companies at their levels. For IBM and AWS, at their level of talent, they know how difficult it is to build what Palantir has, and they want a part of what Palantir has, and to be able to work with Palantir, and working the cultures together helps both of them. And Karp said they have a lot of respect for what Palantir does, and at the same time they understand they can't just come in and make Palantir's entire platform stack on their own. That's why they're partnering with Palantir. And Palantir's modularity is the best on the market. Wall Street doesn't understand it, but the best software companies in the world do, such as AWS and IBM. And I keep saying AWS, of course I'm referring to Amazon. AWS is a subdivision of Amazon. And talking about enterprise software utility, and I forget exactly what he was referring to, but he said 1% of the time traditionally setting up projects, and for it to be 5% of the cost. So they wanted Foundry to be many magnitudes improved from traditional offerings. And Karp has a view that on the enterprise side of things, many will buy software as a finished product once it's possible to do so, and Palantir is making that possible with Foundry as just one singular offering, as they offer the whole stack and not individual parts of a given stack. But Palantir's optional modularity actually supports what it has already built on, and Karp brought this up, so it's two ways to distinguish between what he's saying. And moving on to PLTR stock, talking about the public offering, Karp was joking about the lawyers involved and how he has to jump through a bunch of hoops whenever he wants to say anything, but Palantir is part of what he called the resistance, not always conforming to any sort of corporate culture or anything like that, but he has had to battle against the short-termism, of course, being the CEO of a newly publicly listed company. He's very bullish on the long-term health of Palantir, something he's very focused on, and product development is of the utmost importance. But he has been battling a little bit against Wall Street. He said, not all of Wall Street, it's a bit of a mixed bag. It's just some of the investors that are on the short-term side of things that he is not willing to put up with. At least that's what he said, being slightly, quote, neurotic and introverted. He does very much like the retail investors, those evaluating the offering and dispelling inaccurate critiques. That's what I'm working on this channel. I think he's given us a little bit of a shout out, you guys in the comments as well, that bring valuable insights. And he said he's very happy with how the direct listing went and how normal people with their own opinions and own money were able to actually make a lot in the months following the listing. And here's a good quote: "We are working at Palantir for a long-term outcome. There will be ups and downs. My lawyers won't let me say more than that, but it's obvious. And if you want something else, do something else, meaning buy another stock. I'll see you in a couple years." So he's in it for the long haul. There will be ups and downs. Buy some other stocks if you're not interested in Palantir. Similar to what Elon Musk has said in the past, don't buy Tesla stock if you don't like a volatile company. But there's a great future ahead. He's working in his workshop, and he's not trying to make anyone happy in the short term, perhaps why the stock sold off a bit on the day. So anyway, that's what I have. I hope this rundown was helpful. I kind of broke it down into the different sections. I think this interview was great. I think Wilfred Frost did a great job. Alex Karp had some great time to answer prompts and questions, and overall it was just great to hear more of Alex Karp talking freely. And I think this is definitely some great support for the long-term strength of Palantir. Of course, Alex Karp as the CEO is very focused on that, and he had pretty much nothing but good things to say about the company, which is of course to be expected. So anyway, let me know any more thoughts you've had about this interview, Palantir stock, anything Palantir, leave it below, and I'll catch you in the next video. Until next time.